the Nephilim creatures and the Takla Makan desert. Let's remember that Alexander the Great went into the Takla Makan desert. It means you go in but you don't come out. And he lost 10,000 of his 30,000 troops there. He supposedly went there because he was to receive a special weapon from an extraterrestrial Atlantean, possibly the lightning rod of Zeus mechanism. Now the Christian assumptions, the desert is also related to the angelic order of the Nephilim, which in the Hebrew language means fallen. Two texts essential to the history of the Nephilim, the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls, mention various names for these fallen angels. Related beliefs support the view that the Nephilim were exiled to the Takla Makan desert in northern China, a name that in the local language means you enter but you do not go out, you don't leave. This desert receives very cold air masses from Siberia, which lower the temperature to extremely low levels, even in the summer. Sometimes they reach values to minus 20 degrees Celsius. And because of its location in the center of Asia and the thousands of kilometers that separate it from any source of water, it's virtually impassable. So the wilderness of this desert is supposed to have led to the belief that it was a place of exile for the Nephilim, of fallen angels. Recorded traditions state that Shemhaziah, a high-ranking angel, led a group of angels that descended to earth to guide people to the right path. For those who indulge in myths and the interpretation of symbols, the writer says, I must say that the myth of the desert of angels to earth is interpreted by some as a primordial cosmic memory of the time when the development of the neocortex of the brain began and man was separated from the animal state from nature. And that is, memories from the twilight of Homo sapiens, the wise man. The guidance, according to the myth, continued for several centuries, and here we see the evolutionary path of man. But soon the angels began to seek the earthly woman because they were attracted by their beauty. I think this is in reference to the instinctive human drive towards the reproductive process. So they mated with them and created hybrid offspring, in which the human mortality of the body coexisted with the angelic immortality of the soul. In other words, it refers to the time when man moved away from the law of the jungle, the evil according to modern acceptance, and approached the good with the development of logic, which led to submission, initially to the ethos, the habit, and later to the rules of the group. I think it's worth remembering something about our ancient ancestors. So according to the mythology, Makan had campaigned in the Takla desert 2,000 years before Alexander the Great and Dionysus, and had established garrisons which evolved into cities. Although both Dionysus and his campaign are placed in the realm of myth, the curious thing is that ruins of these cities with purely Greek architecture are still found there today by archaeologists. At the same time, however, mummified bodies of tall, brown-haired people were also discovered whose DNA has nothing to do with that of the Chinese or other native tribes. The researchers speculate that the guards of Dionysus had some extraordinary mission, because otherwise there would be no reason for their presence in this frozen desert. Were they keeping some very serious secret? And what was that? That is not known, only guesses are made. At Takla Makan, there is said to be an ancient white pyramid of enormous dimensions, on top of which stood the temple of Baal. And beneath it, at the depth of 10 kilometers, is an underground statue called Ma Tane, White State, which is believed to be ruled by a 12-member council and presided over by the Archangel of Darkness, Samael. The goal of this council is the coming of the Antichrist. Other records state that the Nephilim were an ancient race whose members were distinguished for their power, their sinfulness, their performance in black magic, as well as their hatred of all things human. They are supposed to have come from the fallen angels, and according to some researchers, they are not considered earthly beings, since they can and do move in an invisible form. It's also reported that they even take human form and influence many situations on the planet, controlling the decisions and actions of people, even rulers. The leadership group, also known as the White Brotherhood, is still accused of leading humanity into constant strife and war. So many believe that the protocols of the sages of Zion, which according to some are aimed at the attempting globalization and are the inventions for the purpose of their domination over earth. Layers of this brotherhood exist in other parts of the earth, waiting for the coming of the Antichrist to dominate our world. In fact, some argue that they are responsible for everything bad that happens to humanity and that they direct people to destruction. In closing the issue of the Nephilim, we must point out the claim of some researchers that Aristotle, Alexander the Great's teacher, was aware of this secret and had confided it to his student, Alexander the Great. And that is why the great soldier, Alexander the Great, carried out a difficult campaign in the region following the same course as Dionysus of ancient Greece. Some researchers go further and argue that Alexander's purpose was to subjugate the hybrid race and the satanic White Brotherhood close to the exit gates of the white state and bestow upon humanity the good, ridding it of the evil spirits that dwelt in the desert. And here is worth noting that indicative of the assumptions about the relationship between the desert and satanic forces is also the fact that for centuries the Tuareg of North Africa covered the face in the area of the mouth, which they believe protects them from evil spirits, which can enter from their mouths. You understand that this is superstition, and this prevailed over the need to protect themselves from the sand, which can create serious respiratory and other problems, which the Tuareg attributed to evil spirits of the desert. And this I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.